The following is a presentation of the OtherCenter podcast feed.
From the center of the galaxy, this is the OtherCenter, presented by OtherCenter podcast feed. I'm Ken Napsa.
I'm Joseph Scrimshaw, and I'm happy to be here on OtherCenter, presented by OtherCenter, which actually makes it sound like everything's like very, very fancy, like we have corporations within corporations.
Or it sounds like we're doing a variety show in 1953. The Texaco presents OtherCenter, which I thought one of my favorite things of the Dana Carvey show, of that ill-fated show, but that's another story. Maybe we'll cover that in another OtherCenter. For those of you who are just joining and have not maybe been caught up with the show, we are, doing non-Star Wars episodes right now in support of the SAG-AFTRA and WGA strikes. And beyond just support, that's number one. We want to support them too. We've explained some of the reasons before, with Jen being in SAG, me SAG eligible, Joseph wanted to be SAG as an actor performer, but also having active contracts as an independent producer with SAG-AFTRA. It's important for us to be as careful as we can. Other people are covering the shows under different titles, reviewers, analysis, and we think that's great for them. Some of them are very close friends. This is a decision that has been made for us, and we appreciate all of you following us on this journey. Or some of you have politely said, hey, I'll check back in when the Wars of the Stars return, and we actually really understand that too. Joseph, we're here. And yeah. I don't want to ever speak for you, but that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy to be on this journey, and like Ken said, I deeply respect anybody feeling any way they do about us taking a break from Star Wars here on our Star Wars podcast. We've had some people on Patreon pause and say, "Hey, I'm here for Star Wars." That's totally fine. We totally respect that. We have a lot of people who have really supported that this is what is right to us. And I know we've said it multiple times, but just to be crystal clear, this is about support. This is about what we believe in. But also, SAG-AFTRA has put out clear guidance that discussing even past work of a struck company like Disney Lucasfilm is not something union members are allowed to do. And Jennifer is in SAG. So for Ken and I, there's some amount of, we want to be in alignment as people who have business with SAG and want to be in SAG in the future. But Jennifer straight up cannot talk about Star Wars. Those are the union rules that have been put out with no ambiguity. So I just also want to make that really clear that, that is a big part of this. Of we don't want to just say, bye, Jen. You can't do this right now, so we'll just bounce along without you. Even though she's not on every episode with us, that just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with you there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're on to OtherCenter Adventures, broadcasting from the center of the galaxy. For me, that right now is a basement in Wisconsin. Which sounds like some Red Letter Media joke, like I've been getting
pizza rolls. Yeah.
Yeah. I want some pizza rolls
and the bad analysis. But anyways,
but I'm here in Wisconsin for the celebration of life and memorial for my father-in-law who passed a little while back, and we had that yesterday, and spending some quality time here with my in-laws. So it's great to be in a basement in Wisconsin, still talking to Ken.
Yeah, you sound wonderful. You sound great. Much love to everyone out there. We're going to dive into a topic here shortly. Oh, this is going to be fun. We're calling it Social Media of Doom. But before we get that, don't forget, you can still support the show by going to visit our sponsor here. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/OtherCenter. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. A little bit later, we'll have a OtherCenter recommends and OtherCenter recommends, I really should say, a book that we think you might want to try out on us. But Joseph, we are going to be talking social media today.
That is right. I'm very excited to talk about these OtherCenter topics, and they're all topics so far that we do talk about. They bleed into our discussion of that galaxy far, far away because of just the big sort of thematic ideas in the storytelling. But this is, I was thinking about, we got to do an OtherCenter episode, recording in a basement in Wisconsin. And I was thinking like, what's something that's really taken up a lot of my mental space? What am I kind of, obsessed with? I used to do my Obsessed podcast. And I was thinking about this while I was staring at lots of bad social media news. And I was like, yes, social media, the good, the bad, the future. That would be really fun to discuss. So that is what we're doing today. Ken, to get us started, my big picture question, social media is a part of our lives. I think everyone's lives, even if they're not on social media, it still helps to shape things. So it's here, whether we like it or not. And, we'll talk about our origins, the joys and the terrors. But I wanted to start with the present and ask you, what is your relationship with social media right now?
Well, right now I have my phone in my hand, and I have a folder on the iPhone that has all my social media apps on it, including Peach, Hive, Mastodon, all the ones I don't necessarily use, and Vero, which I still occasionally go into and just post a picture to myself. And I call the folder Rage Machine, which is something I did a couple years ago. So I, like a lot of people, have a complicated relationship with social media now. We're going to get into that. But here's the thing. I like where you're starting. It's not going away. We're got big changes going on. There's always big changes going on. I remember the first time I was like, what's a Vine? A 6-second video? What? Who would do that? I love the changes, and I love moving with the changes. And I'm trying to make sure I embrace new formats, new ways of getting the message or the art or the content or the fun out there. So I actually like it. And I also, a big picture thing, this is, I don't know, cars, flight, trains, boats, the wheel, and social media. These are like the inventions that have absolutely changed the world. And you can't go back from that. And I wouldn't want to go back from that. And so therefore I actually have more of a positive relationship with social media overall. But like with a lot of things, any advancing or new or emerging technology, it's here. You got to figure out the best way to use it and how to keep it out of the hands of those who would use it to destroy or gain more power. It's all there.
And I love that you have it on your phone with a content warning to yourself. When you label the folder Rage Machine, is that a reminder to yourself that if you go into those apps, you will see lots of things where people are raging? Or is Rage Machine more a message to yourself that if you spend too much time there, you will rage?
Yes, it's for me. It's for me because you can get pulled in so quickly. It's probably a separate podcast, but I went from someone who was, I love a good UFO story. I'll chase Bigfoot with you. I'd love to talk about it. I think if you saw something weird as I did in the sky in 2001, let's talk about it, figure out what it is. I went from that to fighting against what people are calling confirmation of UFOs after a hearing last week. And I suddenly found myself in UFO Twitter. And I had to stop again because they're not getting angry. I'm getting angry. It's affecting me, not them with their blue check mark they paid for, not them with their absolute proof in their minds. Me holding on to reason and logic, or just going pump the brakes, man. It's been. I had to once again pluck. So this emerged from like Star Wars Twitter. Where I still have every word muted. It isn't about you. You tweet what you want, but I have to monitor myself.
Yeah, that's very good. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I definitely get angry myself, but then I'm also affected by the number of people who are in a place of anger in the way that they're expressing themselves on social media, and ranging from everything to, in my opinion, like extremely dangerous political things that are lies, like that, Nazis, to be perfectly honest, and anger, all the way up to like people I deeply agree with who are presenting everything in a tone of anger, to things like, this really doesn't matter that you're super angry at people who don't like olives. Do we need to like, I think that's sometimes what gets to me is the anger from all sorts of different perspectives, and then that general tone. So Rage Machine, I might adopt that as a folder as well.
This could easily spill out to an hour conversation of our overall picture, but you just said something that really reminded me of when I labeled this. It wasn't during Last Jedi. It wasn't when I was maybe being attacked or something for being, you know, and attacked, as I'm putting quotation marks around that, for loving The Last Jedi. It actually emerged following Rise of Skywalker, whereas you said, people I love and respect didn't like the movie. Fair enough. The method in which they were going around talking about it, I was like, I can't, you're making me angry.
Yep. No, there's some things I just can't like. I didn't look at, I avoided any reactions to Dial of Destiny for like 2 days after I saw it. Cause like, fair enough, whatever opinion you want to have, that's just fine. I loved it. I just want to stay there for like 2 days. And then I'll go into the weeds. You started your summary of your overall reaction with the exact same way for me of it's complicated, which is funny since it's the whole, relationship thing. What kind of relationship are you in? It's complicated. That is, I think, almost everyone's relationship with social media. Yeah. And I agree that it's just, it isn't as simple as, is it good or is it bad? I love the list of inventions that changed the world that you listed. And I think of it so much in line with the printing press, the phone, radio, television, anything that advanced how quickly we can all exchange ideas. Mm-hmm. That is truly what changes humanity, in my opinion, is how quickly you can exchange ideas. And now we can exchange ideas lightning fast. And it's fun to say exchange ideas, because sometimes it's ideas, but a lot of times it's just, now I can call someone a bad word because they, disliked a television show from 20 years ago in an instant. I used to have to go to the printing press or send them a letter to tell them they were wrong about this episode of ER, but now I can tell them that immediately. But that is it to me. There are some things that are certainly unique about social media, and we'll talk about it, but it is the good and the bad of human communication and how quickly it can happen, and how do we want to communicate to one another. And that's, I think, where I'm at with social media right now, is being able to recognize what I do want, which is I want two things out of it. I want connection and community, which means I want to just be able to scroll. And in general, like particularly, the closer to real time, the better. What is happening right now, and how do people feel about it? How are they joking about it? How are they responding to it? If it's, international things, if it's national things, if it's local things, people really joke about loving earthquake Twitter in LA. Like that's community of like a thing is happening, and how is everybody responding to it? And it makes us feel more together because we're all responding to the same thing. And I think that's what I'm mourning right now, because I think Twitter was the best for immediate community, and that is being shattered. There's still a little bit of it on Facebook and Instagram, but there's so many ads and shoving me people I don't follow and showing me, the same post that a friend, I want to see their posts, but they posted that 3 days ago and you've shown it to me 87 times. Starts to eat away at the community. So there's like the connection and community part I want. And then I think a big thing that a lot of people are feeling with the shattering of Twitter is so many people who are indie artists, or even just indie of any kind. You're not a large corporation. Maybe you sell widgets, but you do it, you sell independent widgets. Maybe you 3D print one little part for antique cars, and that's your business. It isn't just creative. It's anybody who built a business. Social media destroyed blogs, websites, email lists. And we replaced them with our ability to reach, to broadcast for our careers, for our professions. And losing that is devastating financially to a ton of people. And like, so when I think about where am I at with social media, what do I miss now that it is becoming particularly fractured, is I want that connection and community in real time. And for my career, for my livelihood, for our livelihood on OtherCenter, OtherCenter, we need to be able to broadcast. We need to be able to reach people with our message in order to make money and live.
Yeah. That's when I say I have a complicated relationship with social media. I also am aware that I think I really only have a career that finally took me out of a day job I didn't like and everything because of it, because I could say, here I am, or people found me. And I'm not alone in that. You're not, you're on that team as well. And I that's the only fear I have. Like I'm still on X, facebook.com or whatever the hell it is now. I'm still there. The reason I'm there is I have a radio show that I need people to know about. That's the only spot that I can really get it out and get it out in the same way. In Instagram, maybe on stories, it's an immediate thing, but like that's the only proven ground. And even then for years, links have been suppressed and all those kind of conspiracy theories that are sometimes proven to be true, I would think. I'm with you on that. The world got changed by this, and we all found a way to not make a living from it, but make a living with it and alongside of it, and because of it. And then that got whisked away. The tablecloth got pulled out, and now we're trying to figure out how to get that going again.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll talk more about it. So I'll edit myself now on the other thoughts about what is being lost. But for now, Ken, I want to go back in time. What was your first social media? Was it Friendster, MySpace, Facebook? And what were your initial reactions to this newfangled thing?
Yeah. So, absolutely. I actually got a tab open because I'm trying to confirm. Yeah, this is why I always say be wary of witnesses, because no one ever gets it 100% right. In 17 years of being a professional witness gatherer, I can tell you, never did anyone have 100% memory correct. You know what I'm saying there. Where's my tab? Okay. So Friendster was it. And I signed up in early 2003. I always think 2002, but that's when Friendster launched, but it really didn't launch publicly till 2003. And that would sync up. I got an email from my friend Melinda Hill, a great comic, works a lot with Maria Bamford, and we'd all been in the Groundlings together, a final class. And this was like Mikey Day and Kristen Wiig and all these cool people. We were all very close and tight. And she sent us an email, a bunch of other people on it too. And the email just said, "This sounds like fun." And I'll never forget that, because I was like, oh, I like fun. And I was sitting in my day job. I was working. I started my shift was 6 a.m. I was sitting there about 7 a.m. at a desk. She must have sent the email during the nighttime. And I was, I got voted out of the Groundlings. I'm depressed. Depression's hitting in. What am I going to do? I've been in LA 5 years now. What's going to happen to me? My career's over. Oh my God, I'm kvetching. And then this email comes across. You want to have fun? This should be fun. Hey, Beato, you should have fun. No. And I was like, oh, great. And I signed up right then and there for Friendster. Never forget the email. Never forget my life changing with a sign up button press.
So what did you do on Friendster? And did you like it? Like, that's a beautiful story of where you're at, and like this glowing, like Friendster is like an angel coming down to save you. But did it?
I thought it did. Here's what it did. And this is why, people smarter than me and degrees on their walls can probably explain it. And I know you, with your ability to look at themes and personal themes, could probably explain it, but it's pretty obvious. I think it's like all of us you get to be a star. You get your profile, you put your picture up, you tell people about yourself. People come, well, who are you? Oh, that's you. That's me. And you get to interact. You get an audience. You get to meet people you don't know or connect, or you get, and then you get to explore the people. There was a time where you'd meet someone, and I'm not just talking about someone you may be romantically interested in, but like a friend. I meet this Joseph Scrimshaw guy at a convention. I'd only know about you from, based on what you wanted to tell me. Or I had to go to the library and look up a microfiche and get some, newspaper clippings and reviews from your theater performances in Minnesota. But instead, I just go to Facebook, and there you are. Mm-hmm. And I get to explore your life. And who is this person? And do I want to work with him? Oh yeah, seems great. You like squirrels. I like this guy. And have that all just kind of explode out in front of you. And generations, younger generations grew up with this, and you can't change the time you're born. But like, I feel those moments, this changed my life in the press of a button. I remember I've told the story before about my dad coming home, gather round kids. We got a microwave now, and him warming a piece of bread in 20 seconds, and me thinking, oh, like it's for you. The world's changed right in front of you. And that was one of those moments where now I could go, who is that person? Or, oh, do I like that person? Or, oh, they laughed at my joke. Who is it? And then it's that feel. It feels that need to be seen, heard, and celebrated.
Yeah, and you got that pretty quickly even with Friendster.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I wasn't doing stand up yet. I would start stand up in March 2003. I just finished my time at the Ground Lease, but I wasn't doing other shows. And if you have an audience, it's fun. And I started playing fantasy baseball at a higher competitive level with a league that I'm still in. Started in 1999, but the league had a message board, right? And every morning, because again, I'm sitting there at my job, dying to get out, I would post stuff, right? And it would be funny. Recaps, fake interviews with the player, it's real players, whatever. And the 11 other guys in the league, would comment, right? And so that was my audience every day. And then when I started doing stand-up and started doing podcasts, I stopped posting. A lot of them would be like, hey, man, you don't post anymore. And I eventually was like, yeah, I don't need you anymore. I have an audience.
This makes so much sense and helps me put my initial social media experience into context. Because I can't remember what year it was, early 2000s, around 2002, 2003, 2004. That I think that tracks with when Friendster was first around, and then when MySpace was emerging a few years later. But I had exactly what you're describing. I had it. I was performing a lot. I was doing Fringe Festival every year, and random other shows. But we had the monthly late night comedy variety show that my brother and I started. I've talked about it before. It was called Look Mono Pants, and it was naughty, but really, influenced by vaudeville. And we had a dance troupe called the No Pants Dancers, who did like a comedy modern dance every show that we did. We did 2 shows a weekend a month, and we had an improv troupe that was all our buddies, and we would rehearse, and then we'd go out drinking, and an audience built up around it that was a community. And like that was my community, both the people in Look Mono Pants and the audience, this really loyal audience, and all the inside jokes and all this community. It wasn't just a show, it was community, and was feeling exactly what you're describing, that need to feel seen and appreciated. And I had that. And, I had always been a little reluctant to adopt technology, because I liked lots of old things. So I'd be kind of like, you don't need this. I've talked before about, I typed most of my papers in college on a manual typewriter from 1940. It wasn't only until the end of my college experience where I used a computer. So I was already like, okay, what do we need this for? But it was one of the dancers in the show Look Mono Pants was like, we should all join Friendster. So I was like, okay. So we did. And we were all hanging out in person, live. I loved live performance. I loved live connection. So a website where we simply listed that we were friends with one another. I used to joke, it's like, how sometimes you're around a 4-year-old and a 4-year-old just starts telling you things that are around them, of like, I have a cat and that's a chair. And like, that's what this Friendster is. Like, I know this. What? We're all friends. Any joke you post, you told me yesterday, why are we doing this? What is the point? And you're helping me understand that not only was it me being reluctant and in my current opinion, foolish to not be interested in and adopt new things. I was stubborn and foolish and hurting myself with that. But it was also like the need it filled I had at that time.
Mm-hmm. And I want to be clear. You could look at it with like a negative lens of, we all have this need to be attention, and this. Sure, I get that, and you see that now. But it's beyond that. It's us as human beings. It's how we feel valued, how we feel accepted, and how we feel fulfilled. And especially if you're an artist, and this is the way to do it. If you post a picture, it's not all a negative thing to me. It can go negative places, definitely can, but everything can. We did a food episode last week. That's positive until you turn it into negative by never stop eating nachos, right? It's all there, and I don't mean to get some stoic philosophy there or anything like that. But
no, we talked about it with our acting episode too, of like, you absolutely can take it too far, and it can become vain and extremely egocentric, where you only care about what you have to say, and you don't really care about other people. You just they're just laugh machines for you. you can take it too far, but there's absolutely nothing wrong about wanting to be seen and heard. We all want to be seen and heard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there is Friendster.com.
Yeah. So we'll move on, but I have one other question for you about your Friendster experience. Did you connect with people who are geographically farther away from you on Friendster?
Yes, it did. And quickly merged into MySpace, which started rolling up at that time. And I was still on Friendster actively until like 2005 or 6.
Wow.
Because I remember specifically had met a friend, and I'll just say it, I was interested in her, and I went to find, she had old pictures of herself at USC and everything, and I was on Friendster, and this is like, we were still like commenting back and forth, cyber flirting, like 2005 or 6 before we went to MySpace. But yeah, I did. And I had started writing music reviews for a website called tinymixtapes.com. And through that, people would find me. And I had kind of a music pen pal in Toronto and one in Pacific Northwest. And yeah, that started to open things up a little bit.
Yeah. I think that was one of the other things too, of it didn't expand out of the local. And I think that is such an important part of social media, which I think is a good segue into the next question I want to ask you. What was the first moment that social media became important or impactful to your life? It sounds like maybe it was Friendster, but was there, so you were on Friendster, you were having these social opportunities to be seen and heard, opportunities to meet people you're romantically interested in, which is also important. And I was also in a committed relationship living with a woman in my Friendster. So I was not in that zone either. But then you backed away from it. When did you get back on the hype train? And was it even more impactful than your initial contact with Friendster?
I think this question, when it become important or impactful to your life beyond the stuff we're talking about, I have to take it to career. And I don't know if you go there as well. So, there's friendships and there's finding old friends. And I still like going to high school reunions. I think my 30th is coming up soon. I'll probably go. Like, I like that stuff because I like being social now. Before I didn't. And I like having a drink at the bar and talking with friends. But, without a doubt, by the time MySpace is rolling, you're like, oh, there's that kid from high school I like or hated, or what's Chad doing? Beyond that, I really do think 2012, by this point, I'm starting to produce the podcast for the Schmoes Know guys. And my Twitter handle was Cospan at the time, which is my last name backwards. And it's a different time. But that's when it really became impactful because it was truly, now it was a tool. Now it was a currency. And there's a lot of bad things to that. And you and I both been, part of decisions or have been affected by decisions in this industry of, well, how many followers do you have? You can be hurt by that. But that's when it started to like, oh, and yes, it's fun. It's flattering, the attention. And when you get a lot of, I had a little explosion of followers to get me towards 1,000 in 2012 or 2013. And it was insane in a way, especially for me as a kid who felt he never got anything as a kid and was quiet and the one in the back of the class and no one paid attention. It suddenly, beyond just ego, beyond just feeling good, it was like, oh, okay, what can I do with this now? I launched a podcast after that. I started, getting back in the stand. Like that's when I think it really was truly impactful for me.
Yeah. Was that Twitter mostly?
Mostly Twitter by then. I still check Facebook every day just to make sure no old high school buddy is tagging me as being offensive. But but definitely Twitter.
Yeah, I think for me that's when it became impactful as well. Like I tried MySpace for a while, but I didn't put my back in it. I had it as my MySpace page was the weekly show I was doing then, a show called Adventures in Mating, and it was it was purely a promotional tool, and it wasn't really making a connection. So that was my only dabbling with MySpace. So then I eventually was like, okay, I really got to get into Facebook and Twitter. It's going to help me make connections and sell shows. So for me, it was both. There was a friend from high school, from junior high. I met him in 7th grade. I had a picture of Adam West Batman on my Trapper Keeper, which was at that time, as we've said, that was a bold statement. That was a challenge to perhaps be harassed. And he was like, you got Batman in your Trapper Keeper. And I thought he was going to mess with me. He's like, yeah, what about it? It was like my first words to this guy. And then we became, great friends. So through junior high, we played in the band together. He played bass. I played drums. Big comic book guy. We collected action figures together through the first couple of years of college, and then we lost track of each other. And he moved out, and I didn't know his phone number anymore. So it would have been, there's like, well, maybe someday I'll bump into Kevin at IKEA. But other than that, I don't know if I'm ever, I don't know how to find him,
Yeah.
Like I maybe could have called his mom, but I felt bad about losing contact. So when I got on Facebook, he was one of the first people like, I'm going to find Kevin. And we reconnected, and we've been friends ever since. So that was like a real impactful, like direct connection of Facebook. So I think that was a huge moment for me. And then everything else is, I don't know, it's weird to say career because, especially, podcasts and doing shows together, it is career, but it is also the people that you go through life with, the other people you perform with. So it is career, but it is also connection. It's, the old vaudeville troupe, except for we're spread across the world and connected on social media. But I know I've mentioned this before. Kind of a big part of my life story is my friend Bill Corbett, who people know from Riff Tracks and Mystery Science Theater. He lives in Minneapolis. He came there on a playwriting grant and, fell in love with Mystery Science Theater and all that stuff. So he had invited me to do a show together. We did a couple of shows together. We did it at the San Francisco Sketch Fest. And this is about 2009. And it just so opened up my world. I had kind of a fledgling little Twitter with some local friends, and Bill tweeted out like, "Hey, here's my friend. We're doing some shows together. You should follow him." And just an avalanche of humans from all different parts of the world, and some people who I'm still friends with who are like, software engineers. And Jerry Ryan followed me just because Bill Corbett said, and there was Minneapolis is beautiful, a beautiful city, a wonderful place to make a life full of art. But the way I was raised in Minneapolis was like, it's a bubble, and everything outside of it like is far away. And how are you going to get there? Like you could,
you on Mandalore?
Yeah, like you could do some bonkers thing of just move to big scary Los Angeles or New York with no safety net. And it was like Bill said, follow me. And there was that first bump, and the world opened up. And it is about career, but it is far more about like, I can just, all these things that are so far away and totally inaccessible, other parts of the world, other levels of, career, suddenly became like, oh, that's not this impossible dream. It's a real thing, and it's other people, and you can just connect with them. And I don't know. I mean, I know you've talked about growing up with LA only a few hours away and still feeling like it was a mystical, faraway place. But it really felt like a mystical, faraway place. And the idea of doing comedy everywhere and touring and, all of that opened up because of and doing podcasts, all of that, all of that opened up because of social media.
Yeah. And that stuff, it's amazing. And it is, that's part of the change. That's part of why at the end of the day, I can get angry with it. I can step aside from it for a little bit, but I'd never want it to go away. No, because it helped push past, helped a lot of people push past the gatekeepers, and that's, so there was a reality to it. I moved to LA here in '98, and it's just like, back then it was still traditional. I remember paying for my second groundlings class with a check in my checkbook. Like you go down to the office and do like, and you just, how to get things was harder, different, more difficult. And yes, there's always going to be a negative byproduct of it, but also things just change and the standards are different. I don't love a lot of people that get these giant careers immediately from social media. And I think time sometimes can prove that they not only don't have the chops, maybe as actual entertainers. By actual entertainers, I mean, come from a theater, a comedy, a training background. They're just thrust in the spotlight, but often they're not prepared for it in their character shows. And that's why you have suddenly, hey, remember that person real famous 10 years ago? Turns out they were also really horrible Not because maybe they're a horrible person, but they did horrible things because they just didn't know what to do with this massive influx of fame that came from the social media. There's a plenty of documentaries to watch about how dark this is. But I also think it's really positive when we talk about other aspects, but with career-wise. And yeah, I got us. But working for Screen Junkies was when I finally got a bigger push. You could see it happen every month.
I remember that.
Yeah. But it's crazy. I watched my friend Kathy Kelly, who works for WWE now and had worked when she first got hired. She left for a couple of years. I watched, and she's this really talented, dedicated, hardworking, smart individual. She gets this dream job. They announce her, and I watched on social media as her following went from 1,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 in the span of one day into 1 week. And it was crazy to watch that. And that can be scary. That can be daunting, but also it can be almost like Harrison Ford in the Empire of Dreams documentary. Let's get to work.
That is fascinating. And I think there was a shift in social media where Twitter in particular, that when I started, part of the power of it was the retweet of, if one of my followers with a bigger following likes one of these jokes, that's the way to get followers. And then jokes are still a big part of it, but became less important, and it became more about like, who do you like on YouTube and streaming shows, and you follow them. And I remember just being sort of happy for you, but gobsmacked that you were tweeting less, and it's like Ken's kind of backing off from Twitter and gaining 10,000 followers a day for it. But I'm joking, but it was that shift where people were connecting with you, falling in love with you by seeing you on Screen Junkies and just going, I want to be connected to that guy. And, and so that was about connection and community. It was almost like a vote of like, I like that guy. And the way I tell the world I vote for this guy to succeed is a follow on Twitter.
That's a great way to look at it, and I'm glad a lot of people voted for me. I wasted their vote, but I really think you're right. That the shift and again, good side, bad side to it, but it's interesting.
Yeah, really fascinating, and lots of shifting now. So as we're talking about it, I think we both really felt that our understanding of the world was expanded by social media. We're connecting with lots of different people across the world. What was your journey with that? Not just the connecting with maybe people you want to perform with or new fans from that perspective, but also just maybe you don't even follow them, but somebody reshared, these life journeys and these different perspectives. What was your journey with that?
It was always fun, and it was always a little harmless, and that's cool, and you like this movie, and you're in Japan, and you post a nice picture, you're visiting there, that's great. And then it started really change for me with news and news being spread at the speed of light, which we a couple years later would find out that's pretty dangerous. But it challenged me, and as I've gone through a lot of changes in life and my outlook on the world, or how I understand the world, or what I want to be in this world, it wasn't an easy transition, and there was a lot of bigger incidents that would happen that would challenge my opinion, my own perspective, my opinions on a situation, or what I thought of something. Because I was watching it unfold on Twitter and talk about the rage machine, I would be getting angry at some folks. And sometimes they'll say they don't tweet out the most nuanced takes, but they're also in the middle of it, or the passion, but they've got a lot of life experience, and you couldn't ignore it. You had to maybe sift through some of the rage or the lies or whatever, but you were hearing the stories, and that's, I think, what everyone goes back to. And I think I fought that because it was challenging me in a way in which I'd never been challenged, because you could almost choose how you want to be challenged in the past, right? You either watched the nightly news and talked about it the next day at work, or you just didn't need to engage with it. It was easier to be apolitical, easier to sit in the middle on situations or causes. Now it was, and I remember being distinctly upset. This is around the 2014 range. I think stuff going on in Ferguson was around that time, right? And I just wanted to go on and see a silly joke, or talk about the foibles of eating a gas station sandwich. And I couldn't do that, right? Or at least you couldn't do it with a sense of decency with the pain and the struggle and the anger going on in the world. And that started, so I started to shrink back a little bit there too. I didn't know my place in that. And I've never really fully gone back to posting regularly jokes and comments and life experience and stuff. I've looked at it a little differently. I couldn't change it. And prior to that too, though, there's a moment of I remember there was an incident going on in LA, maybe, I don't know, car chase, but it was something a little bit more elevated than that. And I remember, I don't know, 2011, 12 range, I don't know. And I remember trying to do what I would normally do. Turn on the local news. Let's see what KCAL9's got about this. And they weren't breaking in live. And then when the news went up, hi, welcome. It's the 4:00 broadcast. Cats, are they your friend? Was the lead story. And I'm like, this thing happened today. It's still going on. And I'll go to your website. Nothing. But it was Twitter. And Twitter was the one carrying the news. And again, you're going to have some opinions against some people, blah, blah, blah. But like you were seeing raw video, you were seeing the story. And I even remember posted something about that on Facebook, like a comical, cynical, grumpy version of what I just told you all there. And that forever changed it. So that's how it truly started to really change my journey with it. I started to realize how important it can be.
Yeah, you're making a really good point about not only is it how fast we can share information, it's who gets to share information. Yeah. That's definitely obviously something that we're really going through some deep pain with the algorithms and the purchase of social media sites by unstable egomaniacs. But in some of those early days, the power of Twitter to be like, oh, people are seeing, these weird lights. And then you realize, they are seeing a military action that we then hear about a little bit later. And, the ability for not just sort of the official version of things, but people on the ground to say the power of the people, like, this is what we're seeing and hearing. That is huge. That's huge.
Yeah.
I think for me, there was a couple things. I think just, being more open to evolving, hearing the perspective of people who are younger than us. So we talk about this so much with the galaxy far, far away, of really appreciating that just because we have these specific views that come from growing up with the OT doesn't mean that other people do. Anytime you start your journey with anything, with music, with the late night comedy show on Saturday night, anything, your perspective is so valid based on your age and shaped by your age. And there's no reason to be grumpy about that. Words and ideas spreading more quickly. I think it's kind of, I have a pet theory that the language of young people evolves quicker because due to social media, older people can take their new words and ruin them faster.
So true.
Like, the kids come up with YOLO, and within like a month, it's just like, your grandma is saying it. And it has none of that. Like, we created this and this is special and unique to us. It's taken from them so fast. Like, I got to come up with something new. They're ramping through it so quickly. So there's a lot of evolution stuff. And I think the big thing for me, I'm always really big about this idea of understanding the universal through the specific. So the specific being somebody with a different life experience than me has a really different life experience. And the details of it are very different from mine. But the emotions and the humanity within it, the universal, are so understandable. And bridging that gap between the joy of what makes us both the same and different. And really, when you hear a person's real life story, it breaks down a lot of that us versus them, or I don't understand their perspective, and I'm the sort of the scary other thing that it's so easy to manipulate people with. I didn't have like this scary other, but I think I was complacent in that, like, I'm accepting of people, I'm a liberal, I'm this, that, and the other. And accepting that ideas change and grow, and needing to understand other perspectives. I remember in particular, a friend made a joke with a word that was offensive to a community. And it was structured to like, yeah, I'm not saying that word. I'm using it in the context of a joke. And a bunch of people very kindly explained their life experience and why just casually using that word in a joke was still extremely upsetting. And being able to have those conversations, and I know a lot of times it's just flame wars and just people screaming, but I think a lot of times it is an opportunity to learn of like, oh, I never had any problem with that. I didn't understand why that word was sensitive, or this idea was sensitive, or this conception I have of the way everything is structured in our society. I never had any reason to question that. Well, here comes real human people sharing their real human story of, this is what I went through and this is why. And it's just an opportunity to like truly connect on the deepest level. And to, you and I have talked about a lot of times, I think there are people who can still look at a group of people and be loaded down with a bunch of stereotypes. But then they meet their neighbor and they understand their neighbor is a person and a human, like, frankly, I've known people who are frankly racist and like they have a bunch of racist attitudes, like, but not my neighbor. Well, everyone's your neighbor. We're all connected. And if you can hear that story, if you can hear that story of a person and their experiences, and social media was huge and continues to be huge for me for that. And one of the absolutely most important things is hearing people's truth and being able to just calmly read it, calmly take it in and absorb it and respect it and see if it doesn't change your heart a little bit.
Yeah, no, it's a great way. And you have to sift through sometimes a lot of things we're talking about, the flame wars, the anger. I think some people, there was a recent historical movie out that's in the theaters now. And a lot of people I thought was like, I get what you were starting from a while. Hey, this perspective wasn't in the movie. And it's like, yeah, that's the point. Doesn't it feel wrong? Yeah, gotcha. You got it. You hit the point. And it's easy to stop there and get angry and to just kind of cross your arms and go, this has all got to go away. But what you're describing is what's at the core of it. Why I still think you got to try to make this work for those reasons. This is how we work as humans. I was just having a discussion. Welcome, friends. It's OtherCenter. I'm going to be a little more direct than we have in the past. I was having a discussion with a family member about Ron DeSantis and a lot of the policies from Florida that are designed to hurt the transgender community, queer community, and so forth and so on. Right. And it's a real easy thing to support from a distance. But I told that person, I'd like you to remove that blanket term that's coming out of his mouth or coming out of his policies and insert the name of this person who you had in your house, because I brought them there. And then tell me what you feel about the policies. If you still support them, we can have another conversation. Your choice. Your choice, right? Got it. Got it.
Yep.
But see what that does to you. And I think social media from the beginning, once it really started, and I don't know, I can't remember, I'm talking about early 2010s, but I think before then we went from blogging on MySpace and choosing our profile song to, hey, I'm going through something. I don't know when that really clicked in. But that's the power of it. It allows our human nature to, I always say, I have a joke on stage right now that I'm working on. Don't put that fork in that light socket, and then you have to do it because you haven't experienced it, and you don't believe that person and their experience until you do it, or until you're electrocuted. That's our nature, unfortunately. But at the same time, the search for evidence, search for truth, a lot of times needing to see it, needing to experience it, it's valuable. But I think this is what you're talking about is the core reason it's still powerful and still needed. It is a chance to say, that's not a group, that's me.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very powerful. And I want to find ways to continue because it's really actually fun to evolve and grow. I really like it. And I want to continue to do that. I don't want to be stagnant and be like, I got all the answers. I want to keep hearing different perspectives. And I hope that there continues to be means to do that. What is, Ken, your favorite thing you've posted or the favorite reaction you've got? Let's go back to a little bit of vanity and ego. What was something where you got some, like, you put something good out there?
You sent me this rundown and a lot of it I was like, great. I don't even need to make notes. I got a lot of thoughts. I know I'm just gonna have to slow myself down, make sure I don't put all of them out there. But this one stumped me. I don't remember. You step on what you might share. You've got some great bits or jokes or comments that kind of went around the world. I've never had that because I use social media far too in a confessional blog format. I every morning, part of the reason I check into Facebook every day is I don't interact with it. I'm not on there. I don't post anymore. But I go into the memories page just to make sure, what the hell did I say 15 years ago or 12 years ago or 11 years ago? And so far, there's been nothing that I've been like, I better take that down. And that's kind of not me and never was me. But you definitely see the perspective. You definitely see maturity or age changing things. And also just most of it is dumb. Most of it's me going, another donut today. What's my life? Like, why did I waste time with that? But so I'm trying to, I don't know. Like I like when I'm able to share something sincere, something that, gets people through tough times or a loss of a person, telling a little story, and I get good reaction, because then it means a little something more to me. I've shared a video or two that's been received well by the people that know me. It's never gone outside those walls too much, but that's the stuff. I'll still do that. Recently, Paul Rubens passed away at the time of this recording. I think it was yesterday. That affected me and a lot of people. That man was such an influence on my life as he was for so many other people. And I love seeing those stories, and I love putting a little story out there. And I was able on Threads and Instagram to go a little longer than I was on the other site. But I love that. And I love the reaction. And I love people sharing their stories. And we work through, it's what you talked about, the community. So I really struggled to find one thing, Joseph, because I don't know if I have that. But I love being part of those moments, the healing moments, the catharsis, the joy, those moments. Yeah. I enjoy being part of.
Yeah, you've set me up so well to look like an absolutely vain a-hole.
On my water.
So I was like, this will be light and fun. I'll write down some of my favorite tweets that went over real well.
I don't have any. You're funny. You're so funny on Twitter. I'll tell you what, I got one in like 2011. I said, when I'm in the gym, I'm not looking for a spotter. I'm looking for a witness to greatness. And I thought that was a great, 3 people liked it. If I posted it in 2015, it would have got 200 likes. 3 people liked it. It's the only tweet I thought was worth anything.
It's really, I've experimented with, reading tweets on stage, because I got to the point of like, why am I writing all these jokes to disappear into the ether? And it's really fun to experiment with which ones land with the live audience and which ones don't, and vice versa. There's some like live jokes of like, this is a solid meat and potatoes joke that's just, it's going to land with anything but the most, cynical comedy audience who already knows the joke. And you put that on social media and it is a lead balloon of shame and death, right? And you go to almost it's just a simple setup knockdown joke that's worked a million times. Nothing on Twitter. Yeah. But great live, and continues to be great live. I think for me, it has been an interesting experience to have a couple of tweets that I was lucky to have them be successful, and then to have my name get scrubbed off them and have them be shared year after year, and have some people be really kind of like, I'm going to correct people every time that to actually credit the person. Much bigger deal for artwork. Our poor friend Brian Ward, who,
God damn it,
and like he made one recently, which is a combination of 2 properties we're not talking about, but it was hilarious. And I saw some of the biggest names reshare it. I even saw people I knew share it, and like I didn't have time. I wanted to go, and it's like, that's my amazing friend, our amazing friend, Brian Ward. So that is kind of an interesting experience of the way that ideas travel, and that idea of what is on something like social media that's so communal, what I think things that still need to be attributed because they could help people. It might make a difference in, Brian's life and career.
Yes.
And I felt that way too, because we'll talk about it, but like I'm on social media partially because the more followers I get, the more I can do, the more I can pursue my career. This is lifeblood. It isn't just vanity. So actually being correctly attributed and getting more followers, it's not about just the vanity of followers. It's like, I want to make art, and if this dumb joke will help me make art. So anyway, all that said, it's still pinned on the site that I'm going to still call Twitter for now because I can't deal with it. I'll process eventually, but it's too soon. I'm going through too much right now. I can't.
Yeah.
But it was during a period where it's like I was trying to write a bunch of jokes to just have in my back pocket for Twitter. And I think I was having a conversation with somebody in the normal Frankenstein is the scientist, not the monster thing came up. And I was like, this would be a fun riff on that. And I think it was just like, I had it in my drafts folder, and I think I watched some episode of a television show with Sarah, and it's like, I should go to bed. And it's like, 10:30, and it's like, what do I got? I don't know, send that one. And it just utterly surprised that it was as popular as it was. And it's actually Frankenstein was the name of the scientist. I, the person correcting you on this trivial point, am the monster. And I think it ended up being popular because it was a good twist on a format. Everybody recognized it. But I think the reason that it reached as far as it did is some of the bigger name people with large followings that I was lucky to have following me because I had either met them or other people had retweeted me, blah, 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 related to how much they were being constantly corrected on social media. So Will Wheaton and Neil Gaiman and John Scalzi and people like that were like, yep, funny joke, but also we feel this. And I think that's why it was successful, because of that. It spoke to a pain that people are going through by being, cruelly, annoyingly, pedantically corrected.
Yes. Oh, that's genius.
Yeah.
Genius. Love that.
It is a fun one. And I'm not even going to share the other tweet, but the other thing that has been popular is a couple of tweets talking about creative anxiety, which that was really interesting to me too, because I had in person a couple of friends to really commiserate with the creative process. But for years and years, some of my writing habits I was ashamed of and thought nobody else does this. Nobody else.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody else procrastinates this bad. Nobody else gets that afraid of the blank page. And that was a beautiful thing of social media to realize, everybody goes through this. The most successful creators go through I come up with an idea. It's great. I start working on it. It's the worst thing ever. I'm ashamed to, it's pretty good. I want to share it with people too. This is brilliant. Like that everybody goes through that path was a really beautiful thing to learn through social media.
Yeah, it's what we talk about in our normal conversations about that shared unique experience. You don't think you're unique with that experience because you're special. It's just you think, oh my God, am I the only one? And then you plug into that community. It's a great valuable part of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been talking about some of the positives and the negatives. We're gonna take a quick break and we're gonna wrestle with some of the negatives. But we got this recommendation, right, Ken?
We do have this ForceCenter recommendation here, and it is your choice, right?
Yeah.
Jen had the other one, Tomorrow. We talked about last week, but what is this one?
This one is The Unexpected Mrs. Polifax by Dorothy Gilman. I've talked about it before. It is about an older woman whose husband has passed on, and she's restless and wants to do something with her life. So she decides to try to become a CIA agent, and she does. And it's a mixture of hilarious and also actually good thriller. So I suggest people checking it out. Unexpected Mrs. Polifax.
Absolutely love that. Check it out. Help out the show in the process. Download your free audiobook today by going to audibletrial.com/ForceCenter. Again, that's audibletrial.com/ForceCenter for your free audiobook. All right, quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk about the bad side of social media. It's going to be a 6-hour conversation. I'm kidding. We're going to try to shorten it. We'll be back after this. Welcome back to OtherCenter. I'm Ken Napzok. That's Joseph Scrimshaw. Truly in a virtual studio today. Cross the country here, almost there. We are talking about social media, the good, the bad, the ugly, our little jokes, our pithy comments, and the moments we've been part of a healing community. It's a wide-ranging conversation. Thank you all for listening. Joseph, lead us through the dark, murky waters.
We are plunging into the murky for sure. So for you personally, Ken, what was your lowest time with social media? When did it have the worst impact on you?
For me, it was, and I'm trying to go back, like so you're right to point out that even by 2015, 16 range, when my work with Screen Junkies was raising my profile, I'd stopped tweeting regularly thoughts, opinions, this and that. But it already started to change. But I got to tell you, man, we're trying to talk around that franchise in the stars. But 2017, when episode 8 came out and all the fervor around it, and being on both OtherCenter, but Collector Jedi Council, which had a higher profile at the time, and I just felt, without reiterating and rehashing all the things we've talked about before and probably will again, I just felt my joy was gone. Where I knew it was part of my job to post, hey, here's a link to our current episode. But I couldn't just be like, oh my God, I love porgs, because then that opened up the floodgates. And to see what was in that flood, because at first it was just, well, that person doesn't like it and they're being mean about it too. Oh, that person has a completely different political ideology that they want to use against this film to further their grab for power. My joy was gone. It was depressing. It's still kind of depressing because I'm definitely now not talking about it online, but sometimes I just want to be like, oh my God, I love Admiral Akbar, right? Everyone, right, and that alone will bring the tidal wave. And I kudos to those who still do it, to still navigate that. I think you do it more than me. Jennifer does. More, just even her videos and everything that she puts out are going to elicit that kind of response. But I felt my joy, and it broke me a little bit. It broke me a little bit. And that put me even deeper into a social media shell where I was just a engaged observer, but not a creator in the landscape anymore.
Yeah, it's totally understandable. I think I had two lowest points. I guess they're not technically lowest then if there's a I'm going to rank my lowest points on social media. But one was pretty soon after I moved to LA, and two things happened. A bunch of people from Minneapolis unfollowed me. And it just really hurt. Like not close friends, but like people who knew me from the theater community, or maybe kind of fans or journalists from Minneapolis. And it was really like, well, you don't live here anymore. And it was just a bummer. But also, like when I got here, I was really aware of, you get a good viral tweet and it might really make a difference. And I got so obsessed. I would be like, I should be working on, a script or sketch comedy thing or stand up bit or whatever, and be like, but it's about 2:00 and I should get another tweet out. And, it's gotta be the one that could be the biggest deal ever. And I would freeze like a broken robot for like 45 minutes trying to go like, what are people tweeting about? What's the exact right joke? And like, it became very, very not joyful. And I think it showed in what I was tweeting, because it wasn't fun. I wasn't having fun. It wasn't coming from a place of honesty. It was coming from like trying to get the big hit, like trying to write the hit single instead of just writing 12 songs and finding like, holy crap, this one's the hit single, So that was a real dark point where I had to be like, okay, it is a tool and it is valuable, but putting that pressure on myself, like, all right, sitting around in my pajama pants in my apartment, 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, this might be the tweet that makes my life. Like I had to step away from that. And then for me, speaking of the other galaxy, for me, it was post episode 9. Episode 8, that was hard. But then when it happened again in a very different way, and Trump's presidency had it was understandable that people needed to vent and cope with jokes and expose horrors and all of that. But it had made people just didn't make as many jokes anymore. It was just outrage, and I agreed with the outrage, but it was outrage. And for me, like the things that I can just post that I like feel like they've been narrowed down to cheese, and even then I have to be careful.
Yeah.
About someone getting mad at me because that's the wrong cheese to like. I feel like it. I never left, and I tried to keep going, but I felt like that was it. That was another time. It's like I'm not enjoying being here, and I'm having to do so much work to find out like what's just a fun thing I can write where no one will yell at me because I just want to broadcast something fun. I want it. It was one of those like, if you don't like the way your neighborhood is going, don't move away. Help your neighborhood. And it's like. This is not fun work, but I'm going to stay here making dumb jokes about exercise and cheese because I want this neighborhood to stay strong. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and the up and down of what this all can be, I think it's just like life. I do love working. I love working hard. I also love not working even more. And it's just knowing that you need to take those breaks and knowing that you need to put out there. And as you and I and Jennifer have gone deeper into what we talk about around these parts, with the themes and how they go into life. It's like, I enjoy engaging in that level too, but I agree with you. I always give the example. Pineapple on pizza is the most genius invention of my lifetime next to the microwave and Twitter. I just love it. But man, people will jump me in an alley. They will jump me in the alley.
Yep. In the game of like, I want to structure this joke this way. It's the best way to structure it. But there is a world where you could interpret that phrase sexually. And if I do that, okay, I should use the word, frankly, COME. That spelling, that meaning, I should use that word. That's the best joke structure, but I can't because I'll get 8 million. Oh yeah, it sounds like you want to blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah. Not the darkest part of social media, but a really funny and annoying one to know it so well and know comedy so well of like this utterly basic sex joke is I have to restructure it to avoid it.
I have a working theory that 95% of social media posts and replies and comments can be responded to by one post. Okay. That's all I want to put out most of the time. Okay.
Sounds good. Fair enough. All right. Yep. I love it. Maybe we can start OK.com where we all just post okay to one another with that tone. Or youdou.com.
Yeah.
So we've talked about social media is communication, and anytime the world has advanced in how quickly information can be shared, there are good and bad impacts from that. So I think some things we attribute to social media, I'm sure people were saying about, this newfangled radio. But what is unique to you that is negative that social media is contributing to society?
I think I just saw this week. I'm a big fan of Ken Burns, the filmmaker, the documentary filmmaker, and haven't seen all of his docs because he's got so many out there. But the big ones, the big hits, I love. But this weekend I stumbled on some interviews with him over the last 30 years. And you get in that algorithm on YouTube, and suddenly they're like, "Oh, did you like Ken Burns? Here's 19 interviews with him that you might want to watch." So I ended up this weekend watching him. He's such an eloquent man. And I actually would love to hear him discuss space franchises because he understands that the themes of life spill out of the things that you're talking about. And he said something that it wasn't, and he's older now, but it wasn't a kids these days vibe because the big danger that we've seen is a lie can spread around the world 50 times before the truth even begins. And that's an honest way to look at how fast information changes. Because we can't change that. And I think that's what I'm seeing and have seen for a long time. And it can be frustrating. And again, sometimes you got to be careful about the voices. You don't want to shut out any voices just because they're sharing something fast and true to themselves. But yeah, that one hit me this weekend as I battle. I pulled out of it, but battled and watched other people battle UFOologists.
Yeah. No, I mean, undeniably, with some of the things that happened to the site that formerly known as Twitter, and certainly Facebook too, but the rampant disinformation and misinformation. Difference being that misinformation is just incorrect facts that are, well, I didn't know that was wrong, but I shared it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the disinformation, which is a lie on purpose to spread on untruths for an agenda.
And I would call disinformation very, very destructive. So you don't have to compare them. It's not a contest. They're both bad. But the unintentional, and we've all maybe done that, right?
Oh yeah,
we've all. But the ability to look past a headline is a lost art, or maybe it was an art we never had. But we've all been there. But that's the one. It goes a little bit to the episode 9 conversation of like we were on the same side fighting for the same thing, and now you're against me and this thing, and what you're saying in your tweet isn't true. And I'd love to talk to you about that. It's not true. Abrams didn't go into Reddit and do that. Why are you treating it as a fact? You're better than this.
And expressing it with the same rage.
With the same rage. Yeah.
Is the people. Yeah. Yeah. So I think because of the pop culture, the misinformation is I'm very aware of that, and that feels destructive. It feels like such a betrayal of the early utopian ideas of the internet, that it was the information superhighway. Now, before it was like, hey, if you didn't know about something and you didn't have any friends who knew about it, you did have to work. You had to go to the library or, find an encyclopedia of like, what is the deal with that thing? I don't know, and the idea of, hey, we can be far more enlightened if we never have to go, I don't know, you just Google it and you get a basic understanding. Maybe not, all the nuances, but you can find out what is that historical event, what happened, and it's such a painful betrayal of the information superhighway to have like, we've talked about it a million times, the pop culture sites that spread either twisted truths or sometimes just straight up lies, or saying this actor is for sure cast as this character, and then you dig down the rabbit hole and it's like some guy on Reddit said that and claimed to have a source, but there's nothing backing it up, and there are all of these sites just repeating it, and I see friends getting mad about what a bad casting that is, and going, but just don't betray the information superhighway. Just click, that I think is definitely, we have the opportunity to check our sources faster than ever. And sometimes it's still difficult for sure, but just be not as fast with the emotional reaction, not as fast with the reshare is huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to ask you about this other impact. So I have found it in myself, and I'm curious if you do. I think you and I can sometimes be people who are a little bit in our shells or need our alone time. But when we're on socially, we love being social. You were talking about how much you love a big dinner. And when I'm in the right extrovert headspace, I love that too. But I found after spending a little bit too much time on social media, it was great because I was getting community from there. But it was like on social media, somebody says something and you take whatever amount of time you want for your perfect witty retort. Or you make a joke and you get a great response, and then you don't have to deal with the awkward silence afterwards. And I found spending a lot of time on social media did do a little damage to my my social skills. And I had to be aware of that and rebuild that, because I had gotten used to the rhythm of how discussion and community works, on a computer versus in person. Did you ever experience that? Did you ever feel like social media is making it harder for me to connect with people when I get back in person?
Honestly, no. I'm trying to. I don't want to leave you on an island there.
No. Feel free to leave me on an island.
But I think it's sometimes the other way, where I felt some of the things I was attending, and this is deep. This question here is probably we'll spend some time on here, where I was never intentionally, I need to throw a party to get Instagram photos, but I kind of felt that I wasn't as present in those moments simply because I was trying to document it for whatever reasons, and not all for career gain or social gain or clout or anything like that, but just I was having fun. I want to share that joy. As I said, I have it could manifest into a bit of a problem in my life where I call it like unintentionally egocentric, meaning, and I'm a comic, I'm egocentric, but like I was a kid who didn't have a lot of things, who also was told you'll probably not get a lot of things by parents who were kind of like, well, God bless them. Woe is me. We don't ever get anything. And I carried that. So when I started getting some things, hey, maybe a first date with a really traditionally attractive woman, I was told I would never get that. Mm-hmm. This job. I got to be in a wrestling ring with Roddy Piper. Oh, that's great. So that I can act like, aren't you all happy for me? When some people are like, no, like, no. And that can manifest into, or I don't care because I got my own things. And that kind of showed up in social media for me a lot too, of like, I'm at a party, I'm going to post, I'm having fun. Isn't this great? And therefore I felt I wasn't as present in those moments because I was so worried about sharing it with the world and then wanting to remember it that I didn't experience it. And that sounds like very blanket philosophy at some point, but it was something I personally kind of felt. Where now, we'll get into maybe some reasons where I slowed down a lot, but I almost miss it and I don't know how to do it. So now I'm almost two in the moment where I drive away and Grace and I will look at each other and be like, we didn't even take one picture together in a corner.
Right.
And so I got to find the balance a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think you're talking about a couple great things there. There's the how much do you want to document it versus how much do you want to be it in the moment. And, I think that gets into, people who are grumpy about social media and phones, which I think is becoming less of like, put your phones down and stay active, And you'll see those memes of showing people on the subway or the bus in the 1930s and everybody's got their head buried in the newspaper. Like we weren't all just heads up chatting, having a great time before phones. This is not the only distraction in our lives.
Love that.
Yeah. But there's that great balance. But you're also touching on something really interesting, I think, when you were saying from you have, and I think many people do, I relate to it, a very understandable, almost underdog perspective of that you still feel the wounds of the various negativity, the various ways that you were told that you're not good enough, you're not worth it. And you and I have talked a lot about the various ways that we grew up, both from family stuff, from cultural stuff, from being nerdy, from not being comfortable with body types. Of we got a lot of information that we were not the way that we're supposed to be, and we're unworthy. So when I do something that I think is cool, from my perspective, it's the loser gotta win. So I'm going to put that up there. But from the people who are so kind to follow us and like us and consider us great people who do cool things all the time. Like, I'll post like, hey, maybe like 3 times in a row this week, I went to a cool concert, or I did a show, or now I'm at the ocean with a martini, and my wife that I'm lucky to have one was also told I would never ever have. For me, it feels like this is me scraping from the bottom of the barrel, which wasn't true. I had a lot of privilege, but that's not the way I was. Yeah. That's not the input I got. So for me, it feels like I'm going to post my few wins, and from other people's perspectives, like, well, this guy's just bragging. And I think people feel that way about you too, because you make a unique connection to people and they love you. And so they see you as a winner, even though like a lot of your jokes and your shtick are about the underdog and the crappy food you're eating. But to them, you're a winner, and all these posts is just another win for Ken. But from your perspective, it's like, this is what I scraped. This is the one decent thing I did this week. Yeah. And I think it goes to what you were talking about earlier about, hey, celebrities, they're just like us. I am not saying I'm a celebrity. I'm just like saying like, hey, we all can believe the lie. And we believed it well before social media, well before Instagram pretty versus this is what I actually woke up like, like those are all real things we have to be worried about. But I and that meme you're talking about of everyone on the train reading the newspapers is still one of my favorite memes, because I want to send that one to anyone who's got the old school, anyone on social media, they just share their food and they don't engage with people. It's a real problem, but it's always been a problem. So don't act like that. But and it's
And it's weird. And then I think there's a danger. I have a danger to believe that negative hype that I tell myself. That's a problem I have, and I'm always working on it. Always will have to. It's I think hardwiring. And there was a weird point of time where I didn't intend. I don't. A lot of people don't know this. We don't talk about this as much. I was in a relation prior to Grace. Was in a relationship for about 3-4 years that I had to keep secret for various reasons. Some of it work related. Some of it, her horrible, violent, abusive ex-husband. So to get real world fast, it turns out toxic masculinity can destroy 360-degree angles there. And I couldn't broadcast it. So here I was having a good time with a wonderful person, living life. But online, I had to still kind of be, me, you know me, ain't never getting no ladies. Like, and it was a weird game. And then when that finally came out, I did finally say, like, the last few years, I had some people who knew me, fans, friends, but I kind of in an elevated position who I communicate maybe through Discord or something. Were like, what the beep? Like the whole time I was lonely and thought you were lonely with me. And I was like, yeah, no, I would literally complain about being lonely on Schmoes and go home to her. Like, and it was weird. So I had to pull back from that. And the downside is like, it's like, yeah, you can start to believe the own hype, and then it can become a character, and then it can become something that isn't you. And I think I'd move past a lot of that stuff to where, no, I'm worthy of this. I'm worthy of being not I have a hot lady on my side. I'm worthy of a healthy, functional relationship.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And worthy of going to a good concert and having a creative win. And I worked hard to be in a position to where I get to go to that party. Like, the party ain't everything, and that's not why you do it. If it's inspirational, it shouldn't. I still get that. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit. I still get that stuff. I'll post a picture. By the way, anytime on Instagram I post a picture with Grace, that's the one that has 1,500 likes versus the food ones of 300, as it should be. I'll still get those. Man, I look up to you. I'm the loser nerd guy, and if you can do this, I can do it. And I like the spirit of that. But there's also they're not seeing their own value. Therefore, they're not seeing how I'm in this healthy relationship with a great, wonderful, smart, sexy witch, and also give her the credit. This whole like, man, if you can do it, I can do it too. Well, I don't know. How about she saw me for who I was and didn't judge me on the surface? Saw past what I even saw myself. And so it all gets murky. And social media just is mud into the bog. Yeah. And I really get that, especially for younger people who they never knew a world that wasn't Instagram.
Yes.
I really get the danger of everybody being fake. My nieces and nephews were showing me Be Real a little bit. The thing where I guess you post once a day and you post whatever you're doing, and you kind of can't plan it. And get dressed up for it, or sort of, sell it as your whole life. And I do really get that danger where people, really oversell that their entire life is perfection, and make everybody feel like it's a competition. But I really try to engage with social media I assume everybody posting is having some rough stuff. So they're sharing the thing that brought them joy, or the thing that made them feel like, yeah, I'm a loser, but here was my win today. And that helps me really enjoy social media more.
Yeah.
So we talked about this a little bit, about that kind of the push and pull of how much do you really try to stay in the moment versus, make sure that you capture something from an event. How do you feel when you don't document an event on social media? Does it feel less real? Like if a tree falls in the forest and I didn't add it to my stories, did it fall at all? Like, I think we're getting to that point.
It's not that it doesn't feel real, because again, a lot of the philosophical stuff we've talked about and can talk about. Here's what I feel. Again, going to almost at the start of the episode where you said, hey, it is here, right? This doesn't go away. You and I both grew up in an era where, like, there's a bunch of baby books of me as a baby, me in school, no videos. There's one film of me as like a 3-year-old that my late uncle had. I don't know where it is. My parents didn't get video recorders. I don't have a lot of that, and it's okay. You don't take that with you when you go anyways, but it's powerful to go back and look at that. I love that stuff. And social media became that. And I think, a trip I took cross country in 2008, my first time in Dallas and Fort Worth, and there's some great photos of me at Dealey Square and everything. And I love occasionally, I'll just look through those posts again. It's a memory book and it's a time to remember it. And so I slowly stopped posting more and more. And then there was a period of time following the murder of George Floyd where I absolutely just didn't post anything, particularly on Instagram.
Right.
I stopped. And for a lot of reasons. I was working through what was going on. I also felt, even though there's joy can be important and the laughter can be important in tough times and is very much needed, I just felt right now me posting my fireside whiskey is not the best thing, and not where I wanted to be. And then it continued to go. And I'll say a little bit stubborn on it of just like, I'm still not back, but it wasn't, I was just like, I'm not doing this. And some people were noticing, and I'm okay with the decision for a lot of other reasons. And it wasn't, by the way, no protesting. I was just like, nothing feels, especially COVID's going on. I have friends whose parents are dying of COVID. Just feels like a time where I should be extra wary of what I'm posting. Podcasts are my work, so I'll post links. That's good, but I'm good with that. But then I'll tell you what, man, it's continued, and I forget to pull out the phone. Like I said, the amount of times that Grace and I will be like, "Oh crap, we didn't even take a picture." It isn't mindless youth, the Utes taking pictures on their cell phones. It isn't that. It's how we document things. I don't remember. And I'll go back and I'll do the late night. Let me look at my feed. I'll look at, I remember that. Oh my gosh, I love that moment. Oh my God, that's where Joseph and I met. Oh my God. And then there's just this blank spot for the last 2-3 years. And I miss it. Not that I didn't experience things and didn't know it. There's pictures of engagement. There's pictures of that. There's pictures of us in London. I'm getting better and better and better. And I think some of my reasons for not posting were good for me, meant something to me as I was working through complicated and hurt and nuanced thoughts on big things in the world. But I just, it's like going back and going, what did I do during the 5th grade? There's no photos. And that's where
Yeah. This is really on my mind because yesterday, as we're recording, was the celebration of life for my father-in-law, and we did all of these photo collages printed out and just these great slideshows that are his entire life. And I didn't live like that either. I have a handful of photos from when I was really young. Like old, weird, faded Kodak photos. I have horribly awkward, senior pictures. And then I disappear, and then you can see me dressed as a squirrel or other weird promotional things, or in a bathtub with a mustache with my brother. Only from no real life, all promotional. Maybe a couple parties here and there, and then boom, my life comes back when I have a phone, and it's my journal of my life. The social media, the photos in particular, but also social media. It's the journal of my life. So so it's hard for me of like, there's some times where like, okay, this event isn't the right time, but like, I'll be careful about the way I say this because I don't want to defeat the point, but I did something really special, but for privacy reasons, it's really the right choice to not put it online. And I was surprised by how much it hurt to not be like, this was a big deal to me. It's right to not put it online, but I want to share it because it was true and it was important. And I was kind of surprised by how hard it was to not share it. And I got the photo, so it's in the journal of my life on my phone. But I was really surprised by how much like it isn't about like, I want people to know I did a cool thing. It was, if this is community, if this is connection, if this is a record of our lives that we're kind of sharing with one another, it makes me sad to miss this moment of sharing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm totally with you on that. And it changes. And this is why I don't have a cynical view on it. And yes, I wouldn't want you to take a selfie at a funeral or,
Oh yeah. And that was not the one.
No. This is personal. I have gone almost every time in New York. I will swing by the 9/11 monuments. I've never taken a picture there. I don't mind if someone does. I don't have a problem with it, but maybe the intent or what's in the picture sometimes upsets me. That's me. You might have a different view on it or different standard in your own life for it. So I try not to judge anyone. but yeah, so there's times where I don't, but yeah. I don't, overall, I think it's great that we have this. I think it's great.
It's tone too, right? Like the selfies at memorials of horrible sites of violence and death. Like, take a photo, you were there or whatever, and detail that moves you, but maybe not a selfie. Not a selfie. I think the other interesting thing for me is I so feel the pressure of I am made for jokes, and I will only be valued if I make jokes.
Yes.
And when you and I get together to have OtherCenter meetings, I always remember, like, take a picture of us just at a meeting, and I always feel kind of guilty about it. It's like, there's no joke attached. It's not to advertise a podcast. It's just, hey, everybody, we're having a meeting. And, eating some fries or whatever. And for me, there's a little bit of this kind of deep guilt of like, well, that there's nothing. What are we sharing really? But that, and people always like those posts, and that nice reminder that, like, just sharing the moments of life without needing to make it be like, I'm going to prove my value of being here by needing it to be a joke or a 2-hour podcast, but instead you can just share a moment. Yeah,
no, it's great. And it's part of that community. And it's, I'm trying to get back to that a little bit more, even more and more and more. But yeah, I know what you mean too. And and then we have that, we have that tendency. Social media is dangerous. It's a dangerous weapon in hands like folks like us, where like the joke comes first.
Sometimes that sentiment is just fine. So as we're heading towards wrapping up, we're looking toward the future in a time of great uncertainty with whatever is happening or will happen with the site formerly known as Twitter, and all of the competing fledgling replacements. With the demise or change of the site formerly known as Twitter, what is being lost?
I think what's being lost is the most powerful communication tool in our history, and there's others that have pen, smoke signals, whatever. However we communicated, chopping art into caves, whatever. This is the greatest one of maybe the history of mankind, right? Like, you can see why. You can see why it's negative. And I think to watch that be dismantled to a suspicious degree, to start another podcast of how just rapidly and why, it's troubling because nothing else has replaced it. Now look, we've all been through Friendster, MySpace, Facebook. I was on Facebook when it was the Facebook, and my girlfriend at the time was in college and getting her master's and sponsored me in, right? Where I was always, I remember going, whatever, I'm back to MySpace. My friend Dave Gerhard, a great animation guy out here in town, Cartoon Network and whatnot, he was like, oh, you got to get on Twitter. It's great for you. You can do little jokes and 140 characters or less. And I was like, all right. I was on it for like 2 years before I was like, this is nothing. We've all been there. But to see how that grows, to see how big this grew, and to watch it tumble, I don't know what will replace it. I don't know how we replace it. I'm on Blue Sky. I think it's very functional. It's tumbleweeds just across my feet.
It's a ghost town.
Threads is got the best potential because of who's behind it, but it's not the same. It's like you described earlier. Everyone's trying to write the hit single. I don't think Twitter started out that way.
No, I think everybody was just joking and being goofs. And that built community. I think for me, what is devastating about what is happening I'll be a big boy and say it, X.com. What is happening there is there's such damage to, as I was saying at the top, to artists and any sort of independent creator, independent business person, such damage to their livelihood. Those years of work building an audience. If you're already very famous and very established in an established thing, I don't begrudge anybody, but you're able to just bounce over to Blue Sky or Threads and ramp up real quick. But I don't even know how to build on Blue Sky and Threads because I built back in the day with jokes and reshares. And that's all changed. So I don't know if I can ever get back to the numbers that I had on X.com. And it makes a huge difference in my livelihood and many other people's. So I think that's huge. The loss of the sharing, real-time big events and fun events, Facebook and Instagram. I still enjoy both of them, but they're not real-time. Yeah, I think a lot is being lost. And then on top of it, the neo-Nazis, that part of it is real bad too.
Yeah.
In terms of what is going to happen next, I think it's possible that one of the Twitter replacements, will win the battle. Possibly Blue Sky, possibly Threads, because the known people behind them, they're both doing a pretty good job of just emulating what Twitter was in terms of functionality and look. But they're not there in the numbers. They're not there in the real time yet. I know, I haven't been on much, but I know Threads was starting to roll out the real time. But I can use those to broadcast, and I feel ridiculous now. It's like, well, I should post a joke, and I cross-post it to 8 different sites, and I don't have time to engage on the site and get that community. Because I don't have time to scroll through them all. So the community's gone until one of them emerges as the winner. Yeah. I think it's always possible that maybe Twitter gets sold and patched up and, it re-evolves into something new. But I think maybe in our lifetimes, I think it is a very good possibility to have some version of social media as a public facility maintained by the government. And I know a ton of people are like, no, but and I understand that there's lots of dangers of that, of course, but also I'll put forward things like roads. We do have things that are vital to how we live that are maintained by the government. And in my idealistic view, the government is us. That's the theory. Then there are many flaws in executing that theory. But if we can get to that theory, I think that this realization that a lot of us have had, because Twitter has always been kind of a joke, even as it becomes clearly incredibly important and changes people's lives in multiple good and bad ways. It's always kind of been a joke. Isn't this ridiculous that this happened on Twitter? It's the bird site, right? But now we're all at the point where, oh, wait a minute. The bird site is vitally important for news, for independence, for finding your voice, for connecting with people, for something fun, for something vital. If you need to reach out to other people who in your community who've had this experience, and you're in a small town and you need, it's vitally, vitally important. And I think we are getting to the point where it is going to be recognized of the internet is here to stay, and we need something that can't be sold. Roads. Back to the internet, back to the information superhighway. If it is the information superhighway, then maybe it needs to be protected so it can't just be bought and plastered with lies.
This is great. I will say 3 words that mean a lot. Federal Communications Commission, FCC, is something that I had to live under radar. And here's why. It's just funny you mentioned roads. I was going to close out the show towards the end, Joseph, with quoting the poets, the greatest poets of our time, the Spin Doctors, from 1994, their second album, Turn It Upside Down. There's a song on there called Someday All This Will Be Road. And it is a song about the internet in 1994. Computer age, the plastic age, someday all this will be a road. Where will it take us? It's got 17 lanes. Where will it run? It's an interstate parkway. Here will it go? It's a boot print of progress. Where will it take us? It's going to be a road. Be a road. I remember hearing that song in 1994 and being like, what is Chris Barron singing about? Because our radio station website was going, and we were one of the early streaming stations, whatever that. But what is he? I take Spice Girl quizzes on this thing, and what's he doing? A few years later, 1999, David Bowie launches BowieNet, and it's into it. And there's a great interview you all can find out there, in which a reporter is like, what is this thing? And Bowie predicts the future. Doesn't just predict it. He says this is what it's going to be. And that has continued to be the case. And a lot of it, I think, is our generation beyond, who, of course, again, I remember no microwave. I remember microwave. So I remember this and that. And this is why I fight against even my instincts sometimes to look at TikTok. I'm not a huge fan of TikTok and the content on it, but I cannot let that stop me from understanding its power or the people doing it. And they have control and they're moving it forward. Otherwise, you are going to be left behind. You're going to be Bryant Gumbel and Katie Couric in that famous clip going, what's electronic mail? What is it? What is it? And things are new, and it's funny to look back. We've all got those experiences.
Yeah.
What it starts there, and I don't think it's changed, Joseph. Look at the strikes going on, where you still got these powers that be are going, what, you want to get money from shows on the internet, which, of course, was the big battle in 2007 and 8.
Mm-hmm.
And they know what it's worth because they're hiding the numbers. And so then that's why, to your comment, I know there's probably some people out there going like, no, the government should have control of it. And I understand where that comes from. I do
too. Yeah, there's a danger to it. Yeah, they will limit what can be said, and even though they're not supposed to, all that. I really get that. Yeah,
do not toss out the idea simply based on bad uses of it in the past. But the FCC is something I every day. Every freaking day, because I couldn't say the other option. We only choose to do it because we generally know we have a younger audience and we want to have our words be somewhat easier. But I use those words every day in my life. Use them on stage. I wouldn't want to, I don't want a FCC of stand-up comedy, even though I think words matter and people abuse that and are very destructive with their words. We all have that power. But I'm with you on it. It's not a niche thing, and I think people still think it is.
Yeah.
When Mark Ellis and Christian Harloff started reviewing movies in 2007 at the comedy clubs, I was one of them. We turned to them and said, "What are you doing? You're reviewing movies on the internet? You idiots! Stop! The power is on stage." And I still obviously love comedy. I was trying to put on a comedy show at the time to do at the Acme Comedy Theater with two friends of mine, and actually a bunch of my friends, but two of my friends. One of them, Michael Beatrice. A lot of you, I think you know him online.
Yeah,
they pulled me aside and said, "Hey, we shouldn't do this on stage. That's great. We can put a lot of money into it. It's one night, people come out. The internet exists. We want it to live forever. Let's maybe build a website." This was like 2005 or 6, and I was like, I don't know what to. Anyways, all that to say. The people have to, it's not this niche thing. We have to adjust how we look at it. We have to understand its power because we know its power. We feel its power, but we got to treat it as powerfully as it is.
I totally agree. It's powerful. Everyone should have access to the information superhighway. That's the super fresh, relevant way that we're going to wrap this up with the Spin Doctors from 1994. The Spin Doctors were right. That's our big message. Here's my super important final question for you, Ken. How weird is it going to be to plug our social media at the end of this episode?
It's going to be important because please find us.
Please find me lost in the digital woods. Go for it, Ken. Where can people find you?
Absolutely. We are the OtherCenter podcast feed right now doing OtherCenter shows. We got a big one coming up this week. Oh, I think you're all going to love it. Follow us on Twitter at OtherCenterPod. We are on Threads at OtherCenterPod as well. I got to figure out how to get back in there. I've been oddly locked out of that account on my phone. But not out of it's a thing. Facebook page is OtherCenter Podcast. We're on Instagram and YouTube. Available in a lot of spots wherever podcasts are podcasted. Just search to find us. Merch available at tpublic.com/user/OtherCenter. While you're there, check out the art of Brian E. Ward. Get a shirt. And he needs the 50 cents from that shirt. No. It's also, we need it as well. Patreon.com/OtherCenter is a great way to support us. Get into our Discord, debate food and favorite comfort foods from last week, and just help keep the show going. Follow me at Ken Napzok and go to my website. Remember those? They're back. KenNapzok.com for information on upcoming comedy shows. You, sir.
Thank you for reminding me. I have a website, josephscrimshaw.com. I'll even update it very soon. And yes, please, wherever you are trying out things, Blue Sky, Hive, Threads, I need to post on Mastodon again. Please do find me on social media. I love the connection, and it really does make a huge difference. Got some exciting news coming up about short films, and if you happen to be in Portland, Oregon, this coming weekend, my short film, The Narrator, starring Phil Lamar, will be playing on Saturday at 6 p.m. at the Portland Festival of Cinema, Animation, and technology. That is it for me, Ken.
Hey, and it's great. You didn't mean to share it with me, but I watched it, and it's wonderful. And I hope you all enjoy it when you get a chance to go support it. That's it for this week. Thank you for listening. Thanks for supporting OtherCenter. Thank you for understanding these are our views and opinions expressed by me and Joseph, and do not necessarily reflect Jennifer or the OtherCenter brand. I don't know.
Perfect.
There you go. We'll see you next week here on OtherCenter.